All right. Thank you, everyone, for being here. My name's Stephen Goldmeyer. I'm the board president of the Indigent Defense Research Association. I have other board members here from IDRA in the room and some still joining. So I'm very excited about that. A reminder of what IDRA is. That stands for the Indigent Defense Research Association. We are a group of practitioners, researchers, funders, all sorts of interdisciplinary people, practitioners in various disciplines around public defense and the provision of indigent defense, who are interested in how research can make that better and how to do research properly about the provision of indigent defense. IDRA rhymes with Hydra to connote an entity that is many-headed and hard to kill, as one of our founders, Professor Janet Moore, used to say. So yeah, I'm excited everybody could be here. The prompt today, right, the reason we're getting together is that there was a discussion in our Hail Hydra, I like it. There was a discussion on our mailing list, which if you're not a member, you should join. Someone asking what is the most sort of up-to-date information about case management systems for the provision of indigent defense at public defender offices and sometimes at assigned counsel offices. This topic comes up as well. Yeah, just wanted to create a space for people to talk about the current state of case management systems. I would invite anyone who's here who has feelings about this, who thinks that their system is great, please tell everybody what you love about your system. And if you think your system is challenging, please share what you think is challenging about your system in the interest of trying to step towards maybe doing an update on some of the tools that have been designed to help people choose these systems. This is at least a first step to get the community talking about it. So that's the prompt. If you're eager to share, the first sort of prompt of the day of the discussion is, what is your office using for case management? And if you can put that in the chat if you want, if people had specific questions for each other about these different systems. Or if you just want to come off the mic, raise your hand and come off the mic and talk about which systems you're using. So I'm seeing we have eDefender, a couple legal servers in here. Yeah, please keep sharing Defender data, which I know is popular. The Zealous app definitely has come up before. My Case and Clio. I've definitely heard of people using Clio before. Excellent. A series of programs. Can you define case management? This is a great question. So I think that's something that's going to come out during this conversation is that people have a lot of different needs when they're managing their cases. And there's sort of like the way I think about case management is the backbone of your data infrastructure that basically has like, one entry per case where you can look at what cases you have open right now. But then I know some of those systems will do other things on top of those. The other things that you've listed, things like billing, research, e-discovery management. Some systems include some of that stuff. And so if people want to elaborate on which systems have better versions of those things, I'd love to hear from folks. We have Justice Nexus, Clio again. It sounds like we're talking about a new integrated case management system from Tyler Technologies, which might be custom, the attorney manager platform through this system. And then some people using Defender data, evidence.com for discovery management. These are all great. So yeah, so we're seeing some repeats. I'd be curious if anybody wants to come off of mute and talk about, as far as the repeats go, I think Defender data, legal server are kind of the ones that have repeated, and Clio are the ones that have repeated the most. We'd love to hear case studies from folks on what you like about any of those systems, and places where they're lacking, things that you're looking for from other systems. So if anybody wants to jump off mute and talk about them. I worked in legal server for a while. I know it had limitations. Yeah, I see someone's come off mute. Laura, please. Hi.
Okay. So I work for a nonprofit organization that contracts with our county. We chose Legal Server about 4.5 years ago. We were previously using Legal Files. And the biggest concern with legal files was reporting, which is probably the biggest positive in legal server is reporting. We can do lots of really good reporting. There's no third party app that you need to have. There's no crystal reports. They have lots of reports APIs. So we're starting to get into doing some Power BI dashboards with our data. The other thing about Legal Server is it's extremely inexpensive. So that also means that it's I don't want to say primitive. It's not primitive. It's it doesn't have all the bells and whistles, and it has kind of a nice 80s look to it. I think one of the drawbacks of Legal Server is that it was originally designed for civil legal aid, which is more of a different beast than you might think from public defense. And so the overwhelming number of users are civil legal aid. And we were one of the first sort of large-ish public defender agencies to go with Legal Server, and they've done a lot to accommodate and try to expand to cover public defense type functionality. Some of that they did for free, and some of it we've paid for. There are still some things that it doesn't do well, but we haven't started looking at anything else. So this is about that 5-year mark where we might start to look at the state of, how far other systems have come. We did look at Defender data in our selection process. Oh my gosh, we looked at another system that I can't remember the name of that was purely public defense. And we do, I'll just wrap it up here. We do integration with SharePoint for all of our document storage, which is pretty slick, works really well. And we were coming up on really huge, like 25 terabytes of storage, and SharePoint is pretty expensive. And recently our county has gone to evidence.com to store a lot of that digital video audio stuff. And so we're getting links from them now and our attorneys can go into evidence.com to look at that kind of stuff. So over time, we feel like that'll cut down on our SharePoint storage. I think that's about it. Happy to answer any questions that anybody
Thanks
might
very
have.
much for sharing. I sort of chuckled when you talked about the SharePoint integration for Legal Server, because when I worked at Just Tech doing implementation of Legal Server for clients, it was not as slick. And I think that might, if you can relate to this experience, some of the pieces of it are not that slick, and they get slicker, as you work with Legal
Right,
Server.
right,
But they sort of, I would never say they're using their clients to solve problems, but certainly the problems arise from clients saying, "I wish this was more slick," and
right.
then things get better. So
Yeah,
that's
the SharePoint integration is I don't have a lot of complaints about it. And I did in the beginning. So
yeah,
that's come a long way.
cool. Thanks very much. I see, Paul, you put your hand up next. I'd love to hear from you.
Well, before we move on, there was a question in
Yeah.
the chat from Marin about what specifically have they added for you as a PD agency versus legal aid. So I didn't want to pass that.
Oh, that's so weird. I didn't type that question.
Oh, maybe I'm reading my phone wrong. Does it?
No, you're
Is
right.
everybody
I
else?
see my name here, so
Okay.
I'm not exactly sure what. Oh,
Oh,
you know what?
apparently,
We might have two people joined with my name. I'm not sure, but yeah, go for
very
it.
good. Well, at least we don't have to worry about the White House joining in disguising as you.
Looks like it came from Fawn is who put that
Yeah,
question in.
Fawn is my colleague. We
Got
are
it.
from Wisconsin State Public Defender, and Fawn is a manager there.
Nice. Very nice. Well, so yeah, I would love to hear your response to that, Laura. What are some examples of things that were enhanced for specifically PDs in Legal Server beyond their their legal aid routes, what are some of the things you've noticed they've improved for PDs to use?
Oh boy, from the very beginning, charges, cases have charges. They have an arrests. We can track arrests. We can track charges. Oh boy, there's a lot more that I'm just not thinking of. Civil legal aid is just really different because it doesn't involve penalties and incarceration for the most part for clients. The one thing that they did for us, we kind of made it an element of our contract with them when we very first started, was they developed a credit system for us. And at the time, we were kind of using it in a very rudimentary way, but we have started implementing the National Public Defense Workload Study case weighting that our state Bar Association has now adopted. And it is coming in really handy for that purpose. So it can work a couple different ways, and we're thinking about maybe changing up the way that we're using it, but it definitely will work to help track weighted caseloads, which is really nice. Boy, I'd have to sit here and think for a minute and maybe throw in the chat some really more specific things, because I think I'm too close to the beast now to really recognize all the things they did for us, but they did a lot of PD things.
Yeah, that's great. I will say you are right that reporting in legal server is absolutely its strongest ability, largely because in the legal aid context, the funding can be even more fragmented. The way that legal aid offices sort of, at least the ones that I've worked at, combine some nonprofit funding, some government funding, and then have to provide reports to a lot of different funders. Those reports all have to look different from each other. So yes, that helps a lot as far as designing reports in legal server. I don't know, Paul, if you had more to say, or you were just flagging that question from the chat.
I was going to provide something, but actually, if you can come back to me, because I'll be back.
All right, sounds good. Then I see a hand from Steffi Jean Jakes.
Hi, good morning. Yeah, I just had two questions, Laura. Can you tell me which county in Seattle that you're in? I think I missed that. Sorry.
Oh yeah, we're in Snohomish County, which is the large county just north of King County, where Seattle is. We have about 160 employees.
Mm-hmm.
I think our attorney count is maybe 80, 85. We do the bulk of the public defense. Well, we do all of the public defense for the county, so Superior Court, District Court. We also have some municipal contracts and a tribal contract. But we are a nonprofit, which gives us lots of flexibility in our abilities to choose which kind of system we want. It also means we have less money than a county office, I think. So.
Gotcha. And then, sorry, I did have another follow-up. So you said that you're currently using legal server, and what is the county's case management system? Is that separate or is that the same thing?
Well, so our county office of public defense, which qualifies, financially qualifies clients and does like expert funding, they just recently moved to legal server, I think because we have it, and we're now doing electronic referrals, which is awesome. But the prosecutor's office has, some Tyler, or there's the two big ones, Tyler and Tech Journal. I think they have a journal product. And I think those systems are pretty good, but they also are extremely expensive. So we're not able to integrate with our jail system or our court system at all, which is quite frustrating right now.
Okay, thank you so much for that information.
Thanks very much. Anybody else want to share their office's story of what case management system you're using and what you like and don't like about it?
This is Ray. I'm from the Office of Managed Assigned Counsel in Harris County. I just wanted to, Laura had mentioned integration. We too use Legal Server, and one of the reasons why we went with them was for the integration piece. We didn't know how well it would integrate with our county software, but it actually integrates pretty well. Um, we have cases that are assigned to Mac attorneys, which are, the vendor attorneys that we manage, automatically get sent to
Yeah,
our
always
legal
pay. But
server,
yeah, you probably don't.
and that integration piece is working well. It's all through API. Um, we also have some security settings, so when some cases are sealed or non-disclosed, we get that information as well, and legal server does something about it. All that is to say that if you are able to get information from your district clerk's office or from your
Okay, you don't need any more food. So much.
court offices, legal server will be happy to integrate with them, I think.
Yeah, that sounds right. Thanks very much for sharing that. Um, a reminder that, just to be careful about muting and unmuting. There's a lot of people here, 42 people. Yeah, thanks for sharing. We'll go back to Paul now, please.
Yeah, sorry. I've been using this morning to also give blood while doing this, and that was the very moment that they were done. So they were like, it was just going to be a hectic moment. Um, anyway, so Paul Loveless, Operations Manager for Pinal County Public Defense. We both have a managed assigned counsel and public defender's office all in the same system, and we just got approved for another conflict office. So we use Justice Nexus, which was built by Aon Nexus, and it's a Microsoft Power Apps based solution. I definitely will get my mini Oreos in just a sec, Stephen. I love my mini Oreos when I go to give blood. It's a Power Apps based solution, which is a Microsoft solution. We also Maricopa County, which is I think it's the second largest public or criminal justice system in the nation under Cook County. Anyway, they have 6 offices plus a managed assigned counsel office, all they go live actually on Monday. I just had a stand-up meeting with them. And then Pima County is going to go live with also 5 conflict offices and a managed assigned counsel office, and then the city of Tucson, and then eventually probably all the other counties, but at least a few counties are about to sign contracts. One of the things that I really like about it is the vendor is super cause oriented. So the CEO, I had reached out to him and said, hey, look, Maricopa County and us and Pima County are all really designing this in a way that all the other counties or jurisdictions in the state of Arizona could use our base solution. You should give it to them, give it to these other smaller counties who can't afford. You should give it to them at a discounted rate compared to what we have. Like, just give them licensing, and we could build what we're calling the AZ core. And so essentially we have Maricopa, Pima, and Pinal, which are the 3 largest counties, have agreed upon what is the base that we all use, and then any customizations after that, each county has to pay for. But so that's really nice because there's some other counties that are doing that, and then I'm actually working with 5 smaller counties right now to help them in designing a regional managed assigned counsel office, and they'll actually all be on the same server and license, so they'll have a huge savings from that. It is a bit more expensive than, it's certainly way more expensive than legal server, and it's a bit more expensive than most of them, but I will say a couple of things. One is there's a lot of integration. SharePoint is our main document management system. Maricopa County does have a large contract with evidence.com because their county attorney also had a pretty large contract. So it seemed like a little bit easier. So it is going to integrate with evidence.com. But our county attorney isn't using evidence.com, so we're still using SharePoint. Pima County is going to use Microsoft Azure just because some of their files are much larger than ours. So, but it's all still integrated within the case itself. So the attorneys are looking at their files, looking at their data all within the same system. We have quite a few integrations. One of the things that I really love about it is that because it's Microsoft Power Apps based, there are thousands of different companies, government, nonprofit entities that are using Power Apps as their solution. And so you're able to then learn from what a lot of other people are doing that might not be legal based, but that can work well. For example, we took a solution out of a company that was using a paper form, and they trained Microsoft Copilot to essentially take the form and process data from it. There's a integration that is not available because the courts don't have it, and so we still get a PDF. And I was able to have my staff train Copilot to create a data feed essentially from these PDFs, and so as the PDFs now get emailed to it, it goes in. So that's been really beneficial. The other thing that's nice is because Microsoft Power Apps is used by so many different solutions. I had a paralegal who pointed out right after an upgrade from Microsoft an issue, and I had drafted the ticket for my vendor, but didn't actually submit it. But legitimately by the next morning, within one business day, it had already been fixed because Microsoft probably got told by somebody else, hey, this is a bug, and Microsoft fixed it within 24 hours, which I would have never seen. We used to have Justware by Journal Technologies, and I would have never seen that kind of turnaround. And it's just because there's so many users. So I really, really enjoy it. I think it's a great system. It is a bit more expensive, but they offer so many automations that we've been able to utilize. And we're actually working right now in a pilot program with Thomson Reuters to have an integration with Westlaw's automated AI. It's called Code Counsel. And so we're one of the first integrations that are working with them on that, which I'll hopefully get to report on later. But so it's been really great. I've been really enjoying it. And then I think the only other unique thing about it that I'll just say is that our contractors are all actual users in the system. So they are entering their time entries, they're entering their bills, they're entering their expenses, they're approving the experts through the system. So they are all users. Maricopa County is also doing that, and Pima County is going to do a slight hybrid model with using a portal for them. And then, that's the other thing we do have. We have a portals for the clients. We don't automatically integrate that for clients, but if there's a long time case and the attorney says, hey, I'd like to get my client on the portal, we'll enable that, and they can kind of have back and forth interactions through the portal, get their disclosure through the portal. So that's another nice feature.
Sounds very useful and sophisticated, and probably took some time getting all those details figured out. Yeah. Thought I just saw someone come off mute, but yeah, anybody else want to share about their system, especially if it's a different one, to get more breadth of discussion on the types of systems people are using?
This is Laura again. I would love to hear from folks using Defender data to see, because I know that when we looked at them like 5 years ago, the reporting was still not where it is with Legal Server. I'd be interested to know what the reporting capabilities are of some of the other systems. And I had another question about the other systems, but I can't remember. And then I wanted to chime in too and say and echo what Ray said about APIs. Legal Server has a ton of APIs now. And so I didn't want to give the impression that Legal Server can't connect with other systems. It's usually a matter of whether the system you want to connect with will play nicely. So I just wanted to make sure I clarified that.
Appreciate that. Leslie, your hand is raised. Please go ahead.
Hey, Leslie Howitt. I'm in Utah with Indigent Defense Commission. We've got contractors all over the state, and we pay for them to use Defender data. Honestly, we chose Defender data because it's cheap. We have pretty loose authority over these contractors, and so whether they use it or not, it's hard for us to enforce, and so therefore we don't want the most expensive solution that nobody's going to use. I personally find Defender data to be very frustrating. I know many other states like Louisiana have had really great luck with them. I find it to be very hard to customize. The reporting is very limited. I keep running into very strange problems, like you can't put a hyperlink in a note. And so if you want to put a note with a website, you have to put it in, save it, and then constantly copy and paste it into the browser and go searching for it. Like just really small, weird things. I will say their help desk is lovely. Like if you have a problem, they will respond really quickly. So that helps me avoid them and it being cheap. Our appellate office has recently started using FileVine, which is much more expensive, but in terms of reporting is phenomenal. You can add any field you want. You can create reports however you want. Anyone can create them and you don't have to go back to FileVine to do that for you. The only problem is it is so customizable that it takes a lot of work to set up. Although they did actually just hire a good friend and colleague of mine who was at our public defense office. FileVine hired her away to help them with future public defense offices and that customization. I don't know if that answers all of your questions, Laura. Let me know if you have any others.
And I will say that is something that happened with Legal Server also. As I mentioned, I actually was one of the consultants who worked at a public defender office, then became a Legal Server consultant to help customize systems. They just take a lot, some of these systems to customize. And so you'll hit the limits of your internal office's firepower sometimes as far as process analysis and picking your fields and things like that. I see a hand from Stephen Widely. Please go ahead.
Yeah, this is a quick question for Leslie and Defender Data. And I added up in the chat. One of the challenges that we're having with our case management system is dealing with large evidence that's cloud-based, right? All these systems are cloud-based. They're called SaaS solutions, software as a service, and it's requiring uploading of documents to a central cloud. And we've got a lot of frustration with slowness to upload, slowness to download, slowness to view. And I was curious how Defender Data and Justware and Paul, I think you've talked a little bit about your integration with SharePoint, how that what frustrations you're hearing from your staff or whoever about like reviewing and viewing discovery on these cloud-based services.
Yeah, absolutely. So Defender Data has a very small file size that it accepts. So FileVine Unlimited, that's another benefit that our attorneys have found with FileVine. For Defender Data, it's a common complaint. They can't really put any sort of video discovery in Defender Data, and so they're always having to save it elsewhere. And then figuring out how to link your case file in Defender Data to wherever you have saved that discovery is a pain. And similarly, for writing motions, which is not a question you asked, but it's a very similar thing, how Defender Data interacts with a Word document is also frustrating. Like you can't open it and edit it within Defender Data. You kind of have to open it elsewhere and then re-save it to Defender Data. And even worse, in the desktop version of Defender Data, it makes it look like you can edit the document and then you save it and it's gone because it was just in a temporary version it opened.
I know that in another office that I worked at, when discovery rules changed in New York State to require huge amounts of discovery earlier in the case, we had to very quickly scale up because our case management system really couldn't hold it. We had to scale up an operation for handling that process in something like SharePoint, in our cloud storage systems, and then figure out how to communicate via the case management system which SharePoint folder it was in. Because it didn't make sense to upload, let's say, 500 individual files onto a case inside of our case management system. So yeah, I think it's a very live question. I think discovery rules are getting more, including more stuff, and discovery is getting larger with video files and things like that. So it's great that we're having this conversation because I know it is a limitation in the case management systems I have worked in. I don't know if other people have other things to share about how their case management systems handle discovery, large batches of discovery files. Paul, go ahead.
Yeah, I think it'll be, Stephen, I'll update you next week for how Maricopa is feeling it. I think one of the benefits that Pinal County has is we have a really robust server, and only about 120 users. So I can tell you that for one, we have an integration with the disclosure and our minute entries. So there's almost nothing that our staff are actually uploading anymore, which is incredible. That's really great. That's new. When we had Justware, it was different, and it was always, of course, slower, and that was really our internet connection and all sorts of things. But everything, almost every video, even with the codecs, plays in SharePoint, so we haven't had to download very often. We do occasionally have to download to upload it to our courts use a digital exhibit system. So when we're about to go to trial, we have to upload all the exhibits that we plan to use, and we'll upload the videos as well, because the state may upload a video that has a cut that we don't like or whatever. So so that can be, obviously it takes time, but fortunately most of the stuff actually plays in SharePoint. We don't have very much experienced any kind of delays. However, we've talked a lot with the vendor about Maricopa County, which is I think 890 users in total between all the employees and the contractors. Now they are integrating most of their disclosure through evidence.com, but they still have some things that come in other ways from the Attorney General's office when the AG is the prosecutor on the case. And so it's something we're going to watch really closely with Maricopa and see how it goes. Their IT is not quite as willing to be as robust. Like they have a server that's about the same robustness as ours, but I'm like, well, but you have almost 10 times the users. So so we haven't experienced that quite as much because most of the stuff just plays in SharePoint. SharePoint also auto transcribes all the videos and the audios, not for admissibility in court, but for just users to review. So I don't think we've had nearly those many problems. Our mobile app, the Microsoft Power Apps mobile app, is a little bit slower when you're trying to access the documents, but it's still reasonable in general. So I think disclosure integrations really helps reduce uploading and downloading, which I think is a huge innovation if you can get it. There's probably some good ROI there.
Appreciate that. I think, yeah, this discovery stuff is like a big topic. I also wanted to elevate something that was written in the chat. I think, yeah, Laura mentioned, and I would be curious to hear other people's experience with other systems, how the data architecture can differ. So for instance, in legal server, it's primarily case-based rather than client-based, which means that it can be kind of challenging to get information about clients. You have to sort of find it. Through like the search functionality, etc. And then Ray's also chiming in to say that this can create challenges. So yeah, so I'm curious if there are other systems that do their data architecture kind of differently, and what the consequences of that might be for people who are thinking about those systems. Go ahead, Stephen.
Thanks. Yeah, I just wanted to talk about our experience with JTI's eDefender. If folks aren't familiar with eDefender, I think it's the JTI had a product called Justware, and they ended their support for Justware and moved over to their eDefender product. It's part of eCourt, so my impression is that their bread and butter is providing case management solutions to courts, but they have kind of a spin-off, the eDefender, and they also have one called eProsecutor. We transitioned over to eDefender about a year ago after a long development process. I can't say that it was inexpensive. We went with it because of its high level of customization and a high degree of configuration that we needed for our office. And I've talked with this group before about kind of the unique structure of Seattle's or King County's office. So I won't go into it, but we needed something that was just highly configurable. We're also integrating the workload standards and case weighting and we needed to be able to fit that into the system as well. We were coming from an equally Byzantine crediting system that needed to be programmed in. The logic needed to be programmed into the system too. So we found that eDefender was the most customizable for what we needed. The integrations for it, because it integrates with other eCourt products pretty well, has been nice. We get court dates directly from our Superior Court, which is on an eCourt product, and from our District Court, which is an eCourt product. That's been nice. We were able to do a pretty good integration with our jail, not on eCourt, but still through an API, and with our billing department here within the county, which was a huge lift, but we were able to get it done. So the integration configurations, or the potential for integrations in eDefender, is actually very high. The biggest drawback that we have seen with it, just aside from just overall change management, we were coming from legal files before, has been reporting, and it has been document and discovery management. With regard to reporting, we honestly sort of gave up on JTI's internal reporting tools, and we are integrating business intelligence software. We use Power BI here in King County, but I know that others use like Tableau or whatever to pull data directly out of the database and create reports out of that. It's much more flexible than what we were finding in eDefender. eDefender's graphical capabilities for like visual management are not impressive, and so we found that the integration with Power BI to be really helpful. With regard to evidence management, and that's why I've asked it in the chat, that seems to be our biggest hurdle. It's just slow, and storing things to a central cloud server is just it's just really slow for our folks. Downloading video files, downloading audio, listening to it, realizing you're listening to the wrong one, deleting it, downloading another one, clogs up people's computers, clogs up people's bandwidth, and there are some capabilities to listen to it kind of natively within the browser, but it has to be a certain file type. If it's any strange file type or needs any sort of codec, like forget it, it's not playing without having to download it first. And so that's been the biggest hurdle for us. Because it is so customizable, it does take basically a team of 2 people full-time to just keep it running, and to patch bugs and work with the vendor and just kind of keep it afloat. So it is it's a big gnarly tool that takes a lot of effort. We've got 500 users on our system, and about 200 to 220 attorneys. So so there's a lot of use. It's being used a lot by a lot of people, so there's a lot of throughput on it. But yeah, it takes a lot of effort, and that's been our experience with eDefender.
Fantastic. Thanks so much for sharing. Paul, you have your hand up. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to share an idea that we did, and we were actually playing with Journal Technologies, JTI, as Stephen referred to them, was Justware, and that's who we had before. And when I worked for Pima County, we were playing with this idea. So Stephen, they might still have the stock, but for everybody, one thing that we do that I didn't say when I was talking about our server speed is when a case closes, we actually then the backend SharePoint folder gets moved to a separate server So there are two servers. There is a server for active cases, for the file server for active cases, and then there's a file server for closed cases. They're both very robust for us right now, but Maricopa is doing a similar thing. And they believe their closed cases obviously will be slightly slower. But people are accessing those files a lot less. So then also you're not experiencing the drag as much. And then it really just, I mean, it's not like you have to unarchive it or anything. You literally are just on the back end, it's just on a different server. And so it just helps control that load a little bit. So I just wanted to offer that up as well.
Thanks, Paul. Yeah, that's really helpful. The way that JTI's server management works is since they work with the AWS cloud, if you don't touch a file after 6 months, it gets put into like, oh gosh, they've got a couple of different levels of storage, but it's like it becomes colder and colder and colder, and costs less and less and less because you haven't touched it in 6 months. So its storage is less, and that's actually built in with like a pass-through contract to the AWS cloud, and so that's kind of handled all by them. It's and that seems like that seems to be working fine. That's Amazon's deal, and that's what they specialize in. So that seems to be going well. It's the kind of day-to-day sifting through PDFs and viewing them on your screen, and other large files, and I think that we're struggling with. And when I hear people talk about their integration with SharePoint and have it be, and how that is a little bit more streamlined, I do get pangs of jealousy about that, because we do use SharePoint as a tool for just office management, but we're not able to integrate it into our case management system as the place to store discovery. So it's always interesting to hear people who have been able to get their SharePoints plugged in with the system.
I will say I'm sure there are people who use things like the SharePoint add-ins for legal server, whatever it might be, who get pangs of jealousy hearing integrated into your case management system is your document management. So I think there are challenges no matter how you choose to solve it. But in an office where you already have a pretty robust SharePoint infrastructure and you've already done a lot of work on your SharePoint, I think it can be very helpful for documents to be stored that way. There's been a lot of good discussion in the, someone just came off of mute. Please.
Oh, hey, Nicholas
go
Sawyer here at the Travis County Public Defender's Office, serving Austin, Texas. We actually use a combination of a network drive for our discovery, which is very, very large, lots of body camera, and SharePoint for like more of the case, like case files, or filings and documents, because SharePoint has versioning, and it's easier to collaborate. You can have more than one person be working on a document at once rather than perhaps on a network drive. So we use both. We use a combination. Whenever things are closed in SharePoint, clients' cases have been closed for a while, we'll migrate them to the server. The server's faster and cheaper for larger volumes. We don't have the SharePoint integrate. We also use Legal Server. We don't have the SharePoint integration with Legal Server per se, like their custom one, because that will create a folder for each case to get back to their case-based issue, because we are very client-based. But we have used the APIs such that when you create a new case, it goes into our client folder structure, where essentially you have a folder for a client and then nested case level folders within that folder, which kind of follows the logic of our trying to be a holistic based model. So we kind of use a combination of network and SharePoint, and we use Power Automate to kind of have to build customizations around Legal Server, with the limits of Legal Server. So, but yeah, their APIs make kind of customizing around their limitations pretty easy.
And I'll add that hybrid way of handling sort of large volume discovery that needs to be reviewed versus the live files that people are using. I've worked with offices that, for like basically legal reasons, keep sort of an intact, this is what we got from discovery, and then they take things out of it and make copies of it if they want to sort of work from it, keep it in a system that's more live access. So that's, I think that hybrid method might be, there are many reasons people use it, and that might be more common actually, because I've seen it at a couple of different offices.
And I'll just add, also trying to play the proprietary video players for video surveillance is just never going to run in SharePoint. It's never going to run in, a lot of the cloud-based um, file storage stuff, and digital forensics too. If you're going to do digital forensics and work with really large cell phone extractions, you got to have it somewhere pretty accessible on the device that's doing, Celebrite or what have you, or on a network drive, rather than trying to do all that in SharePoint. It would be impossible. So you have to have some kind of large volume storage to work with.
Yeah, those custom surveillance camera systems that come with their own program that you have to use when you're reviewing them.
Player.exe.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Excellent. Anybody else have thoughts? I think the big topics so far have been how to handle things like large volume discovery, things like data infrastructure, customization, and reporting. Anybody have observations from their own systems on any of those topics? Any of the systems we've not heard about yet? I think Clio was relatively used. I don't know if we've heard a lot about Clio today, but I think Clio's been around for a while, and so I think it's sort of a known quantity. Yeah, I'm also curious to hear more about Zealous. I think we've heard from people who've designed it, so if people who are using it would love to hear what it's like in practice.
Hello. Um, my name is Rachel McRipley. I'm from Michigan, and our office uses VLS. Our office is a Mac office, and we have about 20 courts that we service and provide attorneys for house counsel and appointed cases. And so we started using VLS last year in April. We rolled it out to our office staff first so that we could get accustomed to using it, and then we rolled it out to the attorneys in November. But it came with some challenges, but there are a lot of things about it that I like. They were able to customize it to our needs because we have different types of house counsel shifts, and then different things that we need for the appointments. It doesn't hold any discovery. It's just pretty much for the attorneys to use it to invoice, and then they can use it to keep track of their cases in ZLS. Our office uses it for reporting to data to the state, and it's really helped since we've started using ZLS to create certain reports. We're still working with the developers with ZLS to fine tune some of the reports, but I think it's really nice. We've had a lot of things going back and forth with the developers, but I think they were relatively new. But because they could customize certain things to our office, we decided to go ahead with ZLS.
Excellent. Thanks for sharing that. I think that a theme we're also hearing is like the customization required for some of these systems differs to each one, and ones that don't have a lot of customization are cheaper. They're maybe more quick to implement and understand, but they're missing things like the extra reporting that you might want, things like that. So that's definitely a theme. And I know ZLS is relatively new. We've had some of them as part, some of the people who work on it as part of our community, attending some of our events previously.
Yeah, we did look at I think the Defender data, but it didn't meet some of the needs that we had as far as servicing the attorneys.
Right. I'm also always very curious about how much offices make decisions about case management versus when there are statewide systems, right, that are saying we can integrate best with these systems, or the reporting will be through these systems, and in larger like Mac programs and stuff like that, when you have to deploy to like a lot of different people. Anyway, I think that's something. Another distinction is systems that are designed for that kind of widespread adoption amongst a bunch of different offices in a similar system versus one large office that has a lot of different customized needs. We had a question in the chat: which systems support text messages for reminders to clients about appointments and things like that? Defender Data definitely has that. I have a vague recollection that Legal Server was working on it at some point, but I don't know if they ever finished it. It's something, yes, okay, cool. Legal Server does include that. And Justice Nexus, the Power Apps-based system, does have that available, but it costs extra. And I know that my case has it also. When I was working with another office, there were third-party programs where you could use like APIs from your system to trigger the third-party system. eDefender does include it, but it doesn't work for some implementations, it sounds like. Clio also has it. So it's becoming very widespread. It was not as widespread maybe 6, 7 years ago when I was helping a shop for something like this at my last job, 2 jobs ago. Cool. We have about 7 minutes left. I don't know if there's any other systems that people have, particular things they want to share, or particular pain points with the systems that they've adopted, or even recommendations for how to get around pain points within your systems.
I will just add
Paul.
a lesson learned that I've seen just working with other offices too is, one of the things that I really was annoyed by when I started in Pima County was the data in the system was just not always the greatest between the attorneys not quote unquote communicating with the staff not feeling the most important thing to do is to get the data correct. I really think having whatever integration you have, whether it's directly in the system or through some sort of integration with SharePoint or some file system, having the files and the data accessible through the same user interface, I just think it's always going to improve your data quality because attorneys and staff then go to one place. Attorneys really don't care about the data. They just want to go to the file and read their papers because that's how they were trained to be lawyers in an antiquated law school system. But if the attorney and the staff are all going into that same user interface to get to the documents and seeing the data before they click on the document section, they're always going to notice the data better, and it's just a greater investment. And so I just wanted to offer that up because I still see some places where it's like, well, we don't have this and it would be great and this and that. And there's probably plenty of reasons. I mean, and there's plenty of barriers to those things. But from an ROI standpoint, I just think that county management here, both in Pima and Pinal, always want to see better data. And when we struggle to get that data, it really is tough. And I think also the ABA has clearly showed that we need better data to tell our own client stories. So I just wanted to throw that out.
Yeah, there are also some themes in there of like a new technology doesn't solve a problem. There's cultural and communication things that just need to be in the air that people are improving on, no matter which system you're using. That'll always be in the background. A pain point for eDefender from the comments, having someone internal to improve configuration so you don't have to rely on tickets to your vendor has been basically a necessity. It's another full-time employee to budget for, but it's been worth it. And I think that ends up being true for a lot of these sort of like high customization systems, like Legal Server. It's very hard to have someone. It's very hard to cobble together from different areas of the office or a part-time person to solve problems or even implement new solutions in your system. Having a dedicated person who it's their whole job. It was the basis of my contracting work for a while. I became that full-time person for a little while for some offices. Yeah. Any other thoughts in our last 3 minutes together? This has been extremely enlightening. A lot of different systems with a lot of different considerations. We'll go ahead. I see Laura, you've unmuted.
Yeah, I'm just curious to know if anybody has heard of any other systems that are specifically for public defense, just to kind of broaden the scope of, if at some point our office or other people's offices are looking, who are the people we would want to call to do a demo for us? And I kind of Googled it and I see a couple of others, but I wasn't sure if there's one or more people that have heard of different systems or that would be worth looking into.
The only one that's not been mentioned that I've heard of was Pica, which has gone through a lot of evolutions over its time. So I can't speak to how it's being used currently, but it's what we used at the Bronx Defenders when I was there. And then, yeah, I see a hand in the chat from Stephen.
Yeah, when we did our RFI a few years ago and ultimately settled on eDefender, Carpel was one of the proposals. It was I think they called it Defender by Carpel, and it was built on their Prosecutor by Carpel platform. And what they call PBK, Prosecutor by Carpel, is what King County's prosecutor currently uses, and so they were touting a potential integration with our prosecutor as a main benefit for going with that system. So I know that they're floating around, but they're not very defender focused, right? Their product is prosecutor focused, and so it was I'd say that it was a kind of ancillary product that they were trying to sell, but they are around and it is a product.
Thanks.
Yeah. I just want I would there's a plenty of people in this world who I've been wronged by in one way or another, but I would normally not say anything negative about anybody except for Jeff Carpel, who's the CEO of Carpel, and I will tell you that he does not care about public defenders. We have been in several meetings with them where they have specifically said that they don't believe the public defense, which obviously isn't on Carpel, is a trusted partner in the criminal justice system. So if there is one entity in this world that I would denounce in this world, it is Carpel. So I just want to add that as my personal opinion.
Thanks, Paul. I will say, without going into too much detail, that there's a reason why we did not go with them and went with a different vendor, and it's largely to do with the trends that Paul is referencing.
Very helpful. Thank you. Anybody else? We are at time. So I appreciate everybody being here. This is such a great, I would say, sort of like first, because it isn't the first. This is the 20th conversation we've had as a community, but the first in what might be a renewed interest in thinking about this issue. Really appreciate everybody sharing. Hopefully everybody got some ideas about other things to look at. Some of one thing that always comes out of these kinds of discussions is there isn't really a best solution. We're all kind of making it work, but hopefully the ways that people are making it work can be inspiring to other people who are making it work for their offices. I appreciate everybody sharing today and really leading this whole conversation. I didn't do a lot, so I really appreciate everybody contributing. I have the notes and the recording. The recording we will put on our YouTube channel unless someone can write to me separately if you have concerns about that. And then the comments, the chat, I will keep for later because I think there's a lot of useful information in the chat too. So again, thanks everybody for being here. And if you are not a member of the Indigent Defense Research Association's listserv, or you can find out more by going to our website, which I just put in the chat. That also, I would be remiss if I didn't point out, has a donate button there in case you want to contribute financially to keeping IDRA up and running. Our Zoom accounts where this meeting is taking place, we pay for that. We pay for our listserv, and we pay for some other projects throughout the year. So just want to make sure I mention it. But again, thank you very much, everybody, for being here. And we look forward to seeing you again soon.